Going on, guys? Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Wanted to try and squeeze in one last upload before the year's out. Now, today we're going to take a look at the Danté Concet Symphony. This isn't actually my Bali, it's on loan from a friend, and I offered to fix it for him, and we'll get into what exactly I fixed later on in the video. But these come in at 4.34 ounces. They are 9.76 inches long overall, 5.5 inch long handles, which are a ½ inch thick. They were $1,250 brand new. They run on tang pins, it's a bushing system in the pivots, and a channel design. Now, there is a lot to love here. It's got an incredible design, it's got an extremely innovative spring retraction latch system, which as soon as you pop the spring latch loose, it sucks it right into the handle. It's a really innovative design. This is probably the only Bali that I think I'd ever leave a latch on if it were my Bali. Can't really feel any difference in the handle weight. Don't feel the latch at all when you're flipping it. It's a very comfortable flipper. But at least for my preference and for a lot of other guys in the community, all of the good things about this Bali were completely offset by the god-awful tolerances that it had. It had almost 1.5 inches worth of handle play. And I'll put a clip of the beforehand tolerances when I first got this knife from my buddy so you can see just how wonky it all was. Now, they state on their Instagram page how each blade was hand ground by Dabrowski, which is actually really awesome. They say that the handles were all machined by some CNC shop in Switzerland. They weren't really specific about which one, but they did make a specific note to say that each and every Bali was hand tuned and adjusted to not need any Loctite and have proper pivot tolerances. Now, you guys saw what the handle play was beforehand, and I was able to improve that tenfold. Still got a slight bit of tap. Now, I can't get it any better than this without replacement bushings that are longer and thicker washers from the maker, which of course are proprietary, so I can't get them anywhere else except from the maker, who's stopped answering my buddy that actually owns this knife. Now, whether or not the bushings were actually hand tuned and adjusted, it's irrelevant because the pivot barrels were so damn long that the screw's only going to tighten so much until it's touching the female end of the pivot barrel. Now, I was able to shorten the female end of the pivot barrels a tiny bit. I lapped them down just to kind of force that channel gap a little bit closer to the bushings and the blade, and it tightened everything up a great deal. But I can only induce so much flex into the end of those handles. What it really needs is longer bushings and thicker washers to fill that space out. Now, the bushings and the washers on this Bali are made of titanium, which I'm still struggling to figure out the reasoning behind that, because we know for a fact that steel bushings and phosphor bronze washers works. And I just hate so much when makers use proprietary hardware. I mean, if you're going to tune the thing perfectly from the factory, by all means, use proprietary hardware. But if it's going to be tuned like crap, use standard size hardware, so at least this way the end customer stands a chance of getting it fixed or having it fixed without sending the thing back to the maker who didn't get it right in the first place. I mean, if this isn't an isolated problem to this Bali or this maker, there's lots of makers and lots of different Balis out there coming out with tolerances all over the place, and this is a recurring topic I tend to bitch about on my channel a lot, but it's just something that gets me so frustrated. This is a Bali that costs well over $1,000, and for $1,000 it should be perfect. Now, handle play and tolerances, blade rub, tap, that's something that is entirely subjective, but my take on it is this. If a Bali is gonna have bushings in it, right, it should be tuned so that when you tighten the pivots, it has no play. And then the guys who like play can just back off the pivots a little bit to induce some play into the handles. Not it comes stock out of the box with all kinds of play, or the handles bind up completely because the bushings are tuned like crap, and then the guys who don't like play, who don't like blade rub, who don't like tap, have to either send the knife back to the maker or pay or have somebody else fix it. That's crap. Look at all the Ham balis that come out. When you tighten the pivots, 99% of the time it's going to be tuned perfect and have no play and no blade rub. And then the guys who like play can just back off the pivots a little bit and set them there. That's how it should be, not the other way around. This one was the other way around. And of course, it's all proprietary hardware, so I can't even get the hardware that I actually need to fix this thing and make it perfect. If I had some longer bushings and thicker washers to fill up that space a little bit more, I'd be able to make this thing perfect, have no tap and no blade rub, but I can't get those. Now, it's still a tenfold improvement from where it was, but the principle of the matter is that, especially for what this bali costs, it should be coming from the maker perfect. Nigh a single blemish, scratch, ding, dent. Tolerances should be on point. Now, this video is going to be a bit more of a rant about tolerances and bushings, because this is just such a recurring problem. Yes, handle play is a subjective thing, but bushings are only made to function one way, and the guys who like handle play, that is a much easier fix for them to solve than the guys who don't like handle play having to send the bali off to be fixed. Now, tap has become sort of a meme in the community, but let's get honest. What is blade rub? What is tap? It's the blade touching the inside of the handle. Now, inevitably, that's going to result in big, ugly scratches on the spine of the blade, big, ugly blade rub marks right across the face of your bevel. I don't mind a little bit of play, only so much until the blade begins to touch the inside of the handle. I do not want my blades touching the inside of my handle. And if that means that there's no tap, then so be it. That's just a sign of good tolerances. Now, this topic just gets me so frustrated because, all things considered, this is a great bali. I love tang pin designs, I love channel designs, there's a lot of cool and innovative features, it looks great. But all the good things about this bali, at least for me and my flipping preferences, was offset by the tolerances, which were just, frankly, really bad. And there's a lot of great looking balis coming out, but especially for the guys who buy them to plan on flipping them, all of the good things about them are offset by the bad tolerances. Now, my other qualm is, if you're going to put bushings in the knife, just at least tune them right. When you're teasing the bali and you're trying to build hype and advertise it before it actually goes into production, and you put bushings on the spec list just because it sounds great and builds more hype, that's wonderful. But they don't just get thrown into the blade. There's a rhyme and a reason to how they're tuned and the specific dimensions that they need to be. I mean, if this is really such a hard thing to get right, I wish these makers would just switch over to bearings. Or just use basic washers, because there's no difference at all between poorly tuned bushings or just basic washer pivots. Because this is definitely not a bad bali. I've been flipping it for like a week now. I was flipping it before I tightened it up and flipping it after. And it's a night and day difference from before and after. Such small, minuscule amounts of metal on the bushings makes a huge difference. It's a night and day difference. It really is. And I see some makers putting forth an honest effort to get these things tightened up and get their bushings perfected. There are makers out there who are consistently perfect with their bushings, but there's an equal amount of makers out there who need to get their act together. And I know it's not easy, I know it's a tedious and fickle process, but this is over $1,000 knife. I'd like to imagine that part of that high cost, which I don't mind paying for a great bali, not one bit, but part of that cost should go to the individualized attention that these balis allegedly receive. But Merry Christmas, guys. Just wanted to squeeze in one last upload. Got a lot of good stuff coming in the new year. I got an EX10 review, Emissary, Banshee, and Nemesis review. I'm going to review that Browse Bali at some point, which was a nightmare, but a lot of good stuff coming, guys, so stay tuned. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I'm out.